Hello everyone, my name is Parikshit Narwade from grade 10 and today I am standing before you to explain to you about the topic functional groups. So before starting this topic, I would like to explain to you about one more topic, that is alkyl groups. Alkyl groups can be simply defined as an open bonded hydrocarbon structure, especially the alkanes. For example, methyl group and ethyl group with the formula CH3 and C2H5. Now let's move on to our next topic, that is the functional groups. First of all, a question will arise in your mind that what is meant by functional groups. Functional groups can be easily defined as a group of atoms which are attached to the alkyl groups and it changes their chemical and physical properties of the alkyl groups. Today we are going to learn about 5 types of functional groups, which are halogen group, or also known as halo group, alcohol, aldehyde, ketone and carboxylic acids. So let's start. First, there is the halo group, which is also known as halogen. The formula for the halo group or halogen is R single bond X. Here the letter R represents the alkyl group. The single bond represents the open bond which is filled by the halogen atom, that is X. Here the X can be of any atom, an atom of any element, that is it can be of fluorine, chlorine, bromine or iodine. The molecular name for the halogen group is haloalkane. For example, for the halogen group is chloromethane, which is an halogen which consists of the methyl group and chlorine atom. The another example for the halogen group is chloromethane or chloropropane. Now let's move on to our next functional group, that is the alcohol. The alcohol functional group has the formula R single bond OH. Just like above, the letter R represents the alkyl group, the single bond, the open bond, and the OH represents the hydroxyl group. It is attached to the alkyl group. The structure is single bond OH, which represents that the open bond is filled by or occupied by the hydroxyl group. The molecular name for the alcohol is single bond OL. Here this means that the OL is attached as a suffix to the molecular name. For example, there is methanol, ethanol and propanol. From all these examples we can conclude that the OL is attached as a suffix to the alkane or the name of the alkene. Now let's move on to our third functional group, that is the aldehyde. The formula for aldehyde is R single bond CHO. Here the last carbon or the first or the last carbon of the alkyl group consists of double bond O and a single bond H atom. The structure for the aldehyde group is, as you can see here, a single bond C, single bond H and double bond O. The carbon can be either of the last or the first carbon. The molecular name for the aldehyde is Al, which is attached to the suffix of the alkane. The example for the aldehyde group are methanol, ethanol and propanol. All these three are the examples for the aldehyde. From all these three examples, we can also conclude that Al is attached as a suffix to the name of the alkene. Now let's move on to the fourth functional group, which is ketone. In the ketone, it is similar to aldehyde, but only difference is that the double bond O is attached to the middle carbon, and not to the last and the first carbon. Here you can see that R, which is the alkyl group, and C, which is the middle carbon, because there is another R dash, there is another alkyl group attached, and the O is attached to the middle carbon. Here the R dash and R can be the different or the same alkyl group. The structure for the ketone is C double bond O, and as you can see that the carbon is the middle carbon and not the end or the first carbon. The molecular name for ketone is that on is added to the suffix. On is added as a suffix to the name of the alkane. The examples for ketone are methanol, propanol, and butanol. From all these three examples, we can conclude that on is added as a suffix to the name of the alkane. Now let's move on to our last but not the least functional group, that is the carboxylic acid. The formula for the carboxylic acid is R single bond, which represents the open bond, and C double bond O, single bond OH. Here, as earlier, the R represents the alkyl group. The structure for the carboxylic acid is Z double bond O and single bond OH. Here the carbon is the last carbon or the first carbon of the alkyl group. The molecular name for the carboxylic acid is that the oic acid as a suffix is added to the name of the alkene. The examples for the carboxylic acid group, functional group is methanoic acid, ethanoic acid and propanoic acid. That was all for the functional group topic. Thank you.